TikTok has turned our hobbies into overconsumption. But how? So I was scrolling TikTok the other day, just enjoying the cat videos, the dog videos, and those weird lives that sometimes show up.
You come talk crazy, you get blocked.
But then something interrupted my doom scroll.
Color talk overconsumption. Well, no, I actually use all this, so.
Obviously, this person has a lot of coloring supplies. From a whole lot of books to this giant thing of markers, there's a lot going on there. It was at this point that I realized that our hobbies might just be another form of overconsumption. To dive into that though, we have to define what a hobby is. This is a hobby, otherwise known as an activity that somebody does for fun. And at some point within the last few years, these hobbies have become consumption nightmares. So this is a problem across many different hobbies on TikTok and the internet in general, where people just buy a bunch more than they need of a product. But for whatever reason, until recently, it didn't occur to me the scale of which overconsumption could exist. So today we're gonna look at a few different hobbies that have been impacted with overconsumption, and we're gonna see what's wrong with this. Starting with yarn talk. As someone who considers himself at least a little tiny bit creative, I have a special place in my heart for artistic hobbies and crafts and things like that. So I decided to look more into this and see what's going on. Me, obsessed with yarn? Yes. So that does in fact look like a wall, and it does in fact look like it's filled with yarn, and you are in fact obsessed. And it appears to have every color humans have ever discovered. It's got red, it's got blue, it's got crazy. And call me ignorant, but why would somebody need that much yarn? If I had this much, I feel like it's something I would have to pass down through generations. So I watched this video, I watched a few more, and overall I got all knitted up in yarn talk. Get it? Because yarn and knitting and yeah, but while looking at this, I realized that this was a good example of why I think TikTok may be ruining hobbies. It feels the same consumerism that hobbies are trying to escape. I mean, to me, hobbies are supposed to be nice, relaxing, and peaceful, but in videos like this, it appears to shift from that to more of a consumeristic approach. To me, it looks like it's based on how much you're buying. Like, who needs this much yarn? I can make a sweater for James's giant peach. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the act in itself of buying this much, as long as you're using it. If you're buying this much though and not using it, it turns a nice peaceful hobby into consumerism and wastefulness. So as I continued to scroll through these videos, seeing more yarn than I ever have in my life, I realized that there was a lot of overconsumption on yarn talk, at least the parts of it that I was in. But then I began to wonder, what other niches of TikTok are being infected by this hyper-consumerism?
Me? Over-consuming coloring books and coloring book accessories. And I'll do it again.
Besides her pretty much stating that she overconsumes, this definitely seems like an excessive amount of coloring supplies. For example, when she's showing us her markers, it looks like there's duplicate colors in there for multiple of them. Then when she shows us her coloring books, it is a whole library. And again, I just have a hard time believing that they're being meaningfully used, especially considering how many there are. And she'll do it again. That's a weird flex, but okay. And at the end of the day, it's her money. I mean, she can spend it however she wants, but I do think there's something to be said about promoting this lifestyle and this overconsumptuous habit. I know overconsumptuous isn't a word. I said it. Okay, I said it. I didn't know what else to say. So just go ahead and comment that overconsumptuous isn't a word. Just get it out of the way. For example, this might cause people who are newer to the hobby or younger to feel like they have to buy more supplies to get into this hobby. And then it just contributes to a lot of waste. But with color talk, I can really see it going either way. Let's talk about collecting. So to me, admittedly, the line between acceptable collecting and overconsumption is a little bit blurry. A lot of people have their own definition of it, but simply put, the way I would differentiate between overconsumption and genuine collecting is intention and curation. So when you're collecting, are you actually intentionally and purposefully buying specific things, or are you just buying anything and everything? And I can't read people's minds, even though the fake news will want you to believe that I can. So I'll have to make a few assumptions. And you know what they say about assuming. Don't do it. But I'm gonna do it. Take this clip for example. This creator's name, unsurprisingly, is Funko Daddy, and I'm pretty sure he has enough Funko Pops to take down a small country. Now I'm just waiting for the video where he has them doing some military drills. And there's a few different sides of collecting that I want to talk about, the first one being using collecting as a way to justify overconsumption. And I'm not accusing Funko Daddy of this, but it's something I have seen a lot of. People unnecessarily buy a lot of something and then say they're collecting as a way to justify it. But they don't have the intention of a collector, they have the intention of a buyer. And at the end of the day, no matter how you crack that cookie, it leads back to wastefulness. And obviously, companies will keep making things as long as people will buy them. It's like the law of making things. Keep making them if people buy them. Make sure you write that down. That'll be on your quiz next week. According to The Guardian, in 2022, only about 9.5% of plastic made in 2022 used recycled material. That is a very small amount of recycled material, in my humble little opinion. Not to mention the rise of household consumption waste too. My point is that we should put a belt on all that waste. Like this video if you like good comedy like that. Plant Talk. So before this video, I would have never guessed that Plant Talk had a side of it based on buying more. And what I've noticed through these videos is that consumerism becomes a primary focus of these hobbies. And there's an issue when consumerism becomes the focus, especially in Plant Talk. Price inflation. So what happens in any hobby, but in this case, Plant Talk, is when you buy more, it starts to drive up the prices of the products you're buying, which makes it harder for new people to get into the hobby.
You have too many plants. God forbid a girl try to reconnect with nature.
So that's definitely a lot of plants, and I don't know the names of them, but let me introduce you to them. There's this one, and my personal favorite, this one. But what I think about is how annoying it must be to water all of these plants. Like, I wonder how much time it takes to water each and every one of them. Which again, I'm definitely not knocking the hobby here. It seems like she likes it a lot. And obviously she takes care of them, which is great. But I'm talking specifically about the amount of plants that are being bought, and then imagine that replicated over thousands of creators. It starts making it harder for new people to get involved. Another problem I could see with overconsumption on Plant Talk is it sets you up to fail. This is a big problem on social media just in general, but on Plant Talk, it gives the impression that everything is perfect. These videos make it look like taking care of these plants is super easy, super manageable, but realistically, it's probably super difficult and super hard to consistently do. So to a new person coming in, they might expect it to be really easy, really simple, and they may buy a lot of plants and then find out how difficult it is and get discouraged. Car Talk. This is a space where people collect and buy cars, which naturally, because cars can be so expensive, it can get very, very expensive pretty quickly. But is it overconsumption? Weirdly enough, finding videos for this was actually pretty difficult for me, but I did manage to find this one. Besides all the colors destroying my eyeballs, this video is actually pretty interesting to me. This guy has a lot of cars, he's obviously put a lot of work into them, and it's probably cost a lot of money. I mean, you don't make Barbie cars like this by accident, and I probably just offended some car person by saying that. Let's get back to the question though. Is it overconsumption? Based off this video alone, there's a few things. I can tell that a whole lot of work was put into these cars. I mean, it wasn't like he just bought them and then didn't do anything with them. They're being fully displayed for everyone to see, nothing is hidden or buried, and it all stands out. It definitely feels like he bought them for the love of the game, to fully appreciate them, and to have and to hold. He said, I do. But that's just my opinion. What do I know? Book Talk. So I've known about Book Talk for a while, and I'm not gonna lie, for the longest time, I pretty much thought it was only about the spicy side of Book Talk, because that's all I ever saw. There are so many videos about how wacky and wild Book Talk is. But upon going through the Book Talk community, occasionally finding things that I'd rather not talk about, I found out there's actually normal people there. Who would have guessed? At the same time though, there are some aspects to it that seem to have some potential downside. And actually I think some of these create some unfair downsides for the creators on Book Talk. Buying books and reading books are two different versions of dopamine. I buy every version of this book I come across. I just looked at my bookshelf and cried. Girl needs a whole bookcase for this series. In this case, it feels like reading has turned into how many books she owns as opposed to appreciating the substance inside of the books. I'm sure that this bookshelf alone has more books than the entire US archive. She shows us how many books she buys versus how many books she's read, and the amount she bought seems to outpace the amount read. At one point, she even shows us 6 different versions of Pride and Prejudice. And that is a lot of prejudice. And I'm just a wee peasant that probably doesn't read above the average amount, But it seems like the value being presented in this video is the amount of books she's bought. It doesn't feel like it's about reading at all. It feels like it's about buying. She does have a cool bookshelf though. I especially like the part of it that looks like it's broken. The broken bookshelf aesthetic is definitely one of my favorites. I continue to look into the overconsumption side of book talk, and it seems like a lot of these videos just kind of repeat the same thing. They just talk about how many books they have, they show us their bookshelves, and then there's also the spicy part. Some of you writers out there are wild. But there's also a lot of overconsumption. This is another video from the same person from before, but we get a better view of the bookshelf. And as you can see, there is a lot of books. Is it even possible to read that many books? That's when I decided to investigate. So I screenshotted this image. I asked ChatGPT how many books does it think are on this shelf. It gave me a rough calculation of 2,200 to 2,800. Then it gave me this visual, which I'm not sure how to interpret it. I then asked how long would it take the average human to read this many books. It then gave me this chart. If you read 1 hour a day, it'll take about 34 years. If you read 8 hours a day, it'll take about 4 years. It then offered me a personalized reading plan because I guess it thinks I'm insane. I then told it to crack a funny joke to make us laugh. At this rate, I'll finish my library just in time to haunt it. All of that to say is that it seems very unlikely that she has or will read all of those books unless she gives up her whole life. Again, it just seems like it's turning the hobby of reading into the hobby of buying books. Coffee talk. Got this whole big bat coffee. Just dousing it with chocolate syrup. Gotta ice it, of course. Of course you gotta ice it. Pouring crazy amounts of coffee brew into it. This is literally a milkshake. This is a milkshake. And of course, it wouldn't be complete without whipped cream. And more chocolate syrup. So there it is, a crazy coffee concoction. I don't really understand it. I don't know the point of it. Part of this coffee talk expedition is just creating the most absurd, crazy, insane coffees ever. Like unnecessary amounts of coffee creation are going on. It's like Build-A-Bear Workshop, but for coffee. Build a coffee workshop. Cleaning. One of life's natural laws that if something is on TikTok, it eventually leads to overconsumption. And clean talk is yet another trend bound to this law. What starts as a nice little aesthetic trend quickly turns into an ocean of chemicals, supplies, and sponges all wasted in the name of content. This video is just so wild to me. Everything about this video alone, I'm sure contributed to a solid 30% of global waste. And at what point did cleaning go from this to this? And honestly, I'm not sure how anyone can even look at this and see anything other than wastefulness. The sink is being absolutely filled with a crazy amount of cleaning chemical. And I don't know if I could ever be convinced that that amount is ever necessary. And the chemical smell has to actually be insane. Restocking. So immediately off the bat, you can tell she's stacking them in this little container thing. And that's the thing you'll see with these kinds of videos, is that they have these special made containers where they put the stuff they buy. And the point of it, I guess, is just to totally maximize the amount of space you can use to stock your fridge. And also, I guess, make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. Because I guess people are into that. People like aesthetically pleasing fridges. You don't want a fridge that's ugly and terrible to look at. It becomes an eyesore. You want a good looking fridge. So now it looks like we're getting just the tiniest bit crazy here, because we haven't seen the whole fridge yet, which we will see the entire fridge. But from what I'm looking at, I can see kind of the overconsumption, consumerism, materialist, that part of things that people are talking about. But there's a lot of stuff, it looks like, in this fridge, and that has to cost a lot of money. This is the territory we're getting into where people are kind of like, oh, this is, you know, this is a little weird, a little crazy, you know, oh, a lot of stuff's going on here. And so there is her fully restocked, behemoth, glorious fridge. It's filled with everything you could ever want. It's like Willy Wonka's factory in there. Not even just for chocolate though, for everything. She literally has everything in there. Everything you could ever possibly want. The only part that is just a little moderately kind of wild is how much she's buying, which I get, you're shopping for family, you're gonna buy a lot. There's a lot of what just seems like kind of extra unnecessary things in this fridge. But with that being said, there definitely is a lot of consumerism going on, and I think there's even a pipeline from overconsumption to hoarding, which I talk more about in this video right here, so be sure to check that out if you want to learn more. But other than that, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.